So Zoe, let's go ahead and let's step up to the Highlander. I really love this cheese, and I think I tasted it last time we were together, which was almost 2 years ago, and it's just gotten better since then.
Takes a few years to fully realize a cheese, especially a harder cheese like this that ages 6 to 8 months. You make a little change and then you need to patiently wait, if you can, to see the manifestation of those adjustments before you go and change something else, or then it becomes difficult to know which adjustments are showing up in what way in the final product. So Highlander here is a mountain style cheese that we say it's raw milk. So we're using a very low amount of like commercial cultures, and we're really letting the native flora of the milk show itself here. It's 50% cow and 50% goat milk. So this is a really exciting development for us. We partnered 50-50 with a young couple with a lot of goat farming experience. We're cow people, so we always were hoping to have a goat's milk cheese in our collection at some point, but we weren't ready to bring on goats into our world. And so that partnership has been really wonderful for us. Goat milk tends to be leaner, so less fatty and even like lower protein. So just a little less rich than cow's milk, but very aromatic, right? Some people are huge fans of goat milk and aroma. Some people are a little bit more wary. I like a goat tome, and especially a blended milk, as an entry point to goat's milk. It's not as maybe gamey as like a soft ripened or a fresh chev could be sometimes. So the aromatic of the goat with the richness of the cow, I think, balance each other really well. It's hard to get a creamy, dense, pliant texture like this from goat's milk alone. So the cow's milk is like rounding that out and adding that richness in the body. This is based on a mountain style cheese, as I mentioned, which means it's a cooked pressed recipe. So when they're trying to hurry up and make a whole vat of milk from cow's milk on the side of the Alps in a wooden hut before refrigeration technology, they'd make one cheese from each milking. And in order to kind of get the milk in and out of that copper cauldron, they would build a fire beneath the vat, and cooking the curds would help shrink them up and dry them down, so you could have a nice firm cheese that would age slowly and keep food in the larder through the winter. But the cooking process also imparts some like Maillard reaction flavors, so like some caramelization or meatiness in a way that you wouldn't get if you hadn't cooked the curds. So sort of twofold. And that fast make means that you retain a lot of the calcium. The more acidic your make is, the longer your make, the more lactose you turn into lactic acid, the more you dissolve away the calcium. And the calcium is what gives you that beautiful bendy texture before you'll see a short break. So a quick cooked make means that you have a beautiful elasticity and that very creamy mouthfeel, as opposed to, say, a cheddar, which is a longer, more acidic make with that crumbly texture. So kind of two ends of the firm cheese spectrum. So Highlander, I would say the closest comparison to a European cheese would be maybe a raclette, the classic cheese that you're meant to heat up the surface with an iron from the fire and scrape the melty, bubbly surface onto a plate of steamed potatoes served with cornichon, pickles, and charcuterie. So really nice paired with something acidic. Pickles bring that to the party, and especially cured meats, that like meaty thing. So in the cheese itself, you get big nuttiness. So think like chestnut nuttiness, roasty flavors. You get that meaty gaminess like a lamb chop next to the bone, or in this case, a goat chop, I suppose. And then the butteriness, the richness from the cow's milk. So this to me tastes like a raw milk cheese. There's some wildness to it too. A little bit of little spicy. It's definitely, like Michael said, it's a work in progress, but it's been really fun to see this, the character of this cheese evolve over time. I'd love to see how the pairings go here.
All right, Gillian, let's talk about the Pinot Noir.
Let's do it. I mean, Pinot Noir is so, I think, elegant. I love the texture of this Pinot. It's very silky, which I think does kind of play a little bit to that crystallization of the cheese. And there's just some really beautiful, kind of subtle cherry notes, some delicate floral notes that, again, I think really do play to this cheese quite well. This is a winery that was started in 1982 in focusing on Carneros, so focusing on cooler climate, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay production. Of course, not as cool as Burgundy. So there is some body and weight and texture to this wine. But I like also sort of those, like I said, floral notes, lots of nice dark cherry and pomegranate. And I really love this combination. I thought it worked very, very well together, but I'm a Pinot Noir fanatic, so there's very little that I don't like Pinot with. But it's certainly also kind of the earthiness of it really plays to those slightly mushroomy notes and nutty notes. We typically harvest this fruit in early September, and everything is done in open top fermentation after a little cold soaking to get some nice color out. There's a little bit of stem inclusion to give us, you know, kind of that idea of grip. And I think also that's really softened quite well by this cheese. So yeah, it's 10 months in relatively neutral oak. We're not trying to over oak. We really just want the Pinot Noir to kind of be the showcase and really carry the footprint of the cooler climate Carneros growing region.
Wow, the wine's spectacular. So is the cheese. You know, this is when I think of a Pinot Noir, this is exactly what I think of as a Pinot Noir. There's you know, some nice earthiness through here. There's some nice fruit. There's some, you know, just some great flavors. And I was thinking about the way that this would come together, and there's a nice meld. You know, I think that this provides some backbone for the wine and almost a little bit of a structure. I just really like the way that it doesn't interfere with the fruitiness or the flavors of the wine. The wine doesn't overpower the cheese, and the cheese comes out. So you get a nice balance of the flavors. Zoe, your thought on that?
I'm a cold climate gal. If I could ski 6 months of the year, I'd be happy. And I've learned that I always tend to enjoy cold climate wine. So while I might not always be able to articulate exactly what I'm looking for, if I have a somm or a winemonger will say, that's how I help them steer me in the right direction. So I love this wine. It is elegant. I'm glad that Gillian likes it, because I think in this case, the cheese has slightly more intensity than the wine. So sometimes it's like, depends on who you ask, right? And if the cheese loses the battle, you know, I might not be as favorable, but I'm glad to hear that she also enjoyed it, because I thought that they worked really well together, and that the cheese's character sort of lasted through that pairing with a red wine. It's often easier to pair white wines with cheeses, so I'm really pleased so far with how well this has ended up going. So thumbs up here. I think it's not sweet. The combination of the two isn't sweet, although there are some of those subtle caramelized notes in the cheese, but it's reminding me of like a buckwheat honey. It's bringing out some of that, like the earthy, fruity notes.
Yeah. So Pauline, tell us about the chocolate.
Yes. So the next chocolate is Dulcey chocolate, 32%. It's quite an untypical chocolate. It's not a dark, not a milk, not a white. It's a blonde chocolate, which was quite a big innovation in the chocolate world, we can say. So basically, what is Dulcey? It's a white chocolate that has been eating up one night by a chef, and it becomes like a white caramelized chocolate. After it took years from our R&D to work on it and to have it consistent. So the recipe is like a white, but you have this very nice, we can say, golden colors, and on the profile, you do have like biscuity, caramel notes, hint of salt as well at the end, and the same, not too sweet. So with the Highlander, it was very interesting because there is a lot of similarities. So Zoe, you mentioned the chestnut nuts, the butter, the caramel as well. And so it's all going along with the chocolate, with the biscuity notes, with the caramel nuts, the vanilla a little bit as well. So for me, it's really a combination of warm flavors from both and like very comforting pairing.
Wow. Gillian, your thoughts on all three?
The white chocolate's a little sweet for the Pinot, but I love white chocolate so much. I love the silky, buttery texture of it. So for me, it was more of a textural match, really, than like, but all together, when you have the kind of the savory complexities of the cheese, it makes the sweetness of the white chocolate a little more subtle. And, I'm quite pleased with how the three worked together. Definitely. And, you know, I agree with you, Zoe. I one of my first wine director jobs after Windows on the World was at Picheline, where I worked with Max McKelman and also learned in a world where everyone was pairing red wine with cheese, how much better white wines do pair. But I think that, you know, the subtle characteristics of the Pinot really do work quite beautifully with this. I would even like this Pinot Noir to be a few years older, maybe having some, you know, tertiary kind of cool, interesting bottle bouquet going on, but it's a pretty young, fresh Pinot Noir. But I think an older version of this would be also quite interesting to see.
Well, you know, when we talk about the pairings, there's variations. I mean, we can go well, you know, more robust or less, or any one of those directions. And I think that when you talk about the base of the Highlander and the Pinot Noir and the chocolate, the way that they work together, I think there's a nice symmetry along the way. You know, I could see that what you're talking about the wine being a little bit more, because the chocolate does have a lot of caramel. There's a lot of really richness in there, and that has a tendency to take point. But again, what Zoe said before is that the supporting point of this is that you have the wine and you have the cheese. So sometimes, you know, you do get one that does stand out a little bit more. And then this is a good example of, we have a little bit more chocolate standing out. So you probably could go a little bit more robust, you know, in your wine, in your choices. But again, you know, it all depends on what direction that you want to end up in the first place, or where you started.
You can play with proportions too. So I have sort of like a 1-to-3 or 1-to-4 proportion of the chocolate to the cheese. That was just enough to sort of take that earthy edge off the cheese a little bit. It just has natural bitter notes that you might not notice, but especially as pairing with red wines, those can kind of bob to the top. So I thought it sort of, if you get the proportions just right, kind of like mellow that cheese profile, and then the pairing still works with the wine. It was fun anyway.
Well, I think that's something that needs to be considered on all of these, is that how much of the flavors that you put in. You know, sometimes just a little bit goes a long way, and we have to kind of keep that in mind, that you know, especially with this particular chocolate, it does have a lot of power to it, but in the right proportion, it is really wonderful. Pauline, your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. So we do have a lot of similarities between the cheese and the chocolate. And on the other hand, the fruitiness and earthiness of the wine, of the Pinot, is still going very well along with it, even if it's a little bit different, because none of them will overwhelm the others. So at the end, it's all well balanced.
Wonderful. That was a really nice pairing. Let's go ahead and get to our last and final pairing, which before we started, I have to tell you that I had a question for Zoe is what she was doing with her trophies. And the reason for that is that they won 2 years ago, because we didn't have any competition last year, at the International Cheese Awards. This cheese, Bayley Hazen, took the Reserve Supreme Champion at the show, and she got 2 ginormous sterling silver trophies that actually have not left England since something like 1892, something like that. The first time Americans have ever won that. And so she has 2 of those trophies, and it attributes to the quality and richness that you think about. She competed against all of the European cheeses, against even American cheeses, and ended up being not only better, but also the second best cheese in the entire world. So, Zoe, that's
According to British judges. We'll take that. In Stilton country, yeah.
exactly.
Right?
And we're always looking for silver linings, right, over the last year, for heaven's sakes. And yeah, getting to keep those sweet trophies around the office in our creamery another year is one of those.